On the nights my wife was away, I received a text message from Aunt Wang next door. From then on, Aunt Wang often came to my house. "Which of these two outfits do you like? I'll put it on and wait for you at home." My wife, Xu Qing, was on a business trip for half a month, and I was lying on the sofa watching a football game when I suddenly received a message on my phone. I grabbed it and glanced at it twice, shocked, and sat up abruptly. Aunt Wang, Wang Xue, actually sent me 2 photos which made my mouth dry, and I swallowed my saliva, picking up a can of beer and gulping it down. A thought flashed through my mind, and I hurriedly saved the 2 photos, waiting to enjoy them later. My wife, Xu Qing's mother, passed away early, and it was Aunt Wang who practically raised her. Sure enough, as I expected, after about 2 minutes, Aunt Wang suddenly withdrew the photos. Before I could ask, her call came in. "A-Qiang, you didn't see anything just now, did you?" Aunt Wang's voice was a little nervous, perhaps because of the photos she had just seen. I was sitting cross-legged on the sofa in my shorts. "What?" "Aunt Wang, I understand. My uncle has been dead for so many years. I won't tell Xu Qing. Let's just keep this a secret between us," I said, while scrolling through the screen, looking at the saved photos. I have to say, Aunt Wang is really well preserved. Oh, you saw everything. It's not what you think. I was going dancing tonight. I was just joking with someone," Aunt Wang explained coquettishly on the other end of the phone. We're all adults. Who would believe such a lie? When I married Xu Qing, I was surprised by how young Aunt Wang looked. Later, I heard that Aunt Wang eloped with someone when she was 18. Although the man took responsibility for Aunt Wang, he was short-lived and died within a few years. As it turned out, Aunt Wang is now in her 40s, a lustful age. It's understandable that she'd look for a man. "Aunt Wang, aren't you going to your date tonight?" "I won't tell Xu Qing. You go ahead and do your thing." I don't know what got into my head, but I actually blurted that out. Aunt Wang and I were both silent for a moment, and then she quickly hung up the phone. I didn't feel like watching the game anymore either, so I quickly finished my beer, took a cold shower, and went back to the bedroom to sleep. But for some reason, I tossed and turned all night and couldn't sleep. The next morning, I vaguely felt someone standing next to me. I opened my eyes abruptly and suddenly saw Aunt Wang. When did she get here? Aunt Wang was wearing a tight dress and holding my change of clothes. Her face was slightly flushed, and a faint fragrance emanated from her body. I hurriedly grabbed the quilt and covered myself. "Aunt Wang, why are you here?" I sat up and asked. "Aunt Wang has my key. When we first got married, Xu Qing said that we were both incapable of taking care of ourselves and couldn't cook. Aunt Wang would occasionally come over to help us cook and tidy up the house. I didn't really care about these things, so I gave Aunt Wang a key, but she had never entered the bedroom before. It was while Xu Qing was away. Xu Qing's not home. I thought you wouldn't eat on time, so I came over to make you a meal. The living room was a mess, so I took advantage of the morning when I didn't have anything else to do and washed all your clothes." Aunt Wang acted as if she didn't see anything and folded the clothes, tucking them under her arm. "A-Qiang, come out later. I'll make you something delicious." After I spent another half an hour under a cold shower and emerged from the bedroom, Aunt Wang was busy in the kitchen. Hearing me, she turned and looked. "A-Qiang, you're just in time. Could you scratch my back? My hands are full." "Aunt Wang, is that appropriate?" I stood frozen, my Adam's apple bobbing. Aunt Wang blinked, brushing her hair to one side. "What's not appropriate?" "A-Qiang, I know about you and Xu Qing. How long were you two planning to keep a secret?" I stood there as if struck by lightning. She knew about my divorce from Xu Qing. Xu Qing was a colleague from my previous company. When she first joined, her striking beauty and perfect figure attracted the attention of many male colleagues. Back then, I was focused on making money and had little interest in such things. I never expected Xu Qing would take the initiative to approach me. She frequently used work as an excuse to get close, and gradually, feelings developed between us. We often went hiking and to the movies, and soon after, we officially became a couple. Quickly, we married, and I left the company with my stock options to start my own business. Xu Qing knew how to enjoy life. Apart from being pampered growing up and unable to handle housework or cooking, she was flawless. I didn't mind. After all, we could hire a housekeeper for those things. But I never imagined Xu Qing would betray me with a wealthier older man. I noticed something was amiss when she started making frequent business trips. I then used my hacking skills to access her information and discovered she was checking into hotels whenever she claimed to be working late. The day I caught her in bed with him, I brought her home. Xu Qing offered no explanation, instead declaring defiantly, "He's richer than you. I'll take his money and support you. Isn't that a good thing?" "Bullshit. I'd be living off his money." Xu Qing readily agreed to a divorce. However, to ensure the stability of my company and spare my father, whose health was failing, the distress of knowing, I asked Xu Qing to keep the divorce a secret. Publicly, we'd say she had demanding work assignments requiring frequent travel. We'd help each other maintain the facade until the time was right to reveal the truth. Xu Qing must have kept this from her family. How did Aunt Wang find out? Noticing my shock, Aunt Wang straightened up, leaning against the stove. I raised Xu Qing. I know her character better than anyone. When you two got married, I knew she wouldn't be able to resist temptation. But you're a good man. Aunt Wang looked at me intently. I truly envy her. Without finishing her sentence, she turned back to ladle the soup. Aunt Wang didn't mention the matter again, and I naturally helped her carry the dishes to the table. Try my cooking. Wang Xue filled a bowl of chicken soup for me. Honestly, Wang Xue's cooking was really good. I heard from Xu Qing that Aunt Wang had wanted to open a restaurant, but back then, the economic conditions were difficult, and it was simply impossible. Many restaurants couldn't cook as well as her, and in the few years we'd been married, Wang Xue had thoroughly spoiled my palate. I took 2 unsuspecting sips, but I felt like there was something else in the chicken soup today, like the taste of Chinese medicine. A-Qiang, you've been divorced from Xiao Qing for so long. Haven't you thought about finding someone else? Wang Xue propped her chin in her hands, sat across from me, watching me with seductive eyes, and rested her hands on the dining table. I don't know if it was from the hot soup, but it was hard to endure. My back was soaked with sweat. Someone your age must have strong needs. Xiao Qing was the one who wronged you in the divorce. Why not let Aunt Wang help you? Wang Xue's feet started to fidget again. Aunt Wang, Xu Qing and I are already divorced, and we've talked it over. It was a peaceful separation. You don't have to come over anymore. I've already found a housekeeper, and she'll be starting in a few days. I tried to refuse, but Wang Xue had already stood up. She wrapped her arms around my neck. A-Qiang, when you got married, I saw the look in your eyes. I understood. Can you say you didn't have other thoughts then? Wang Xue was right. On the day of the wedding, when I saw Wang Xue, I did have some fantasies. But how could I ever act on them? You said it yourself. You're already divorced, so you and Xiao Qing have nothing to do with each other anymore. So what's wrong with us? After Wang Xue finished speaking, she touched my head. My head felt a little dizzy at this point. I shook my head. I originally wanted to push Wang Xue away, but for some reason, the moment I touched her, the cool sensation made me involuntarily linger. Listen to your heart, A-Qiang. Wang Xue whispered in my ear. There's something I added to the chicken soup today. Why don't we go to the bedroom? Seeing that the drug was taking effect, Wang Xue no longer hid it. I knew there was something wrong with the chicken soup today. But now, even sticking my fingers down my throat wouldn't do the trick. I looked at Wang Xue, my vision blurry, reason gradually losing ground to impulse. Suddenly, a jolt of clarity hit me, and I pushed her away, heading straight for the bathroom. I rushed in, turned on the cold water, and showered myself in it. Even though I felt like I was rolling around naked in the snow, I still couldn't control the urges in my body. But there was nothing I could do. A-Qiang, instead of making yourself suffer like this, why don't you let me help? Wang Xue's voice came from outside. When I walked out, I saw that she had, at some point, taken off her dress and changed into a black lace negligee. My eyes turned red with rage, my scalp tingling. I walked straight over, grabbed her arm, and yanked her up. She let out a soft cry of pain. Hey, be gentle with me. I was losing control, my head throbbing. What? Can't those old men outside satisfy you? I cursed at her, but Wang Xue seemed to enjoy being scolded. That's right. I've been thinking about you all along. They certainly can't compare to you. You're the best. Who could resist someone like this? I really couldn't control myself, but then I heard the sound of a door opening behind me. A-Qiang, I'm back. Let's talk. Xu Qing's voice came from behind me. I instinctively turned around and met her eyes. She must have just returned from the airport, a suitcase still in her hand. She froze, unable to process the scene before her. What are you doing? Xiao Qing, you're back. I have to admit, Wang Xue's composure was remarkable. She actually dragged Xu Qing aside and whispered, "It's all your fault. You couldn't handle him, so I had to step in and help. You know our situation. How can we get a divorce? No matter what, we can't let today be a waste." Wang Xue winked. Hearing her words, I finally understood their plan. Xu Qing and Wang Xue lived extravagantly, spending every penny they had. Both targeted wealthy men, relying on them for support. They couldn't save a dime, and Wang Xue's prospects had recently dimmed. Without a man to bankroll her, their living standards had plummeted. They couldn't even afford the property fees for their apartment. When Wang Xue learned about my divorce from Xu Qing, she assumed Xu Qing had found someone better. But as it turned out, the older man Xu Qing found was a sham. His company and money belonged to his wife's family. When the wife discovered his infidelity, she cut him off financially and filed for divorce. She even demanded the return of all the money he'd spent on Xu Qing. The lawyer said it was marital property, so he had no right to give it away. Xu Qing hadn't been on a business trip. She'd been in hiding, afraid of the man's wife. She'd pawned all her valuables, bags, jewelry, everything to try and fill the financial hole. These two leeches, unable to find suitable prey, had set their sights back on me, their patsy. They hoped I'd take Xu Qing back. But Xu Qing was hesitant. She still had some feelings for me and didn't want to deceive me further, so she refused Wang Xue's urging. Seeing this, Wang Xue took matters into her own hands. The photos and messages she sent me were a deliberate trap, luring me in step by step. She prepared a pinhole camera in her bag, aimed directly at the bed. With the resulting images and videos, she could blackmail me. My company, my career, everything would be at risk. To keep things quiet, I'd have to pay. Wang Xue had really concocted a clever scheme. Do you want to go back to that kind of life? I certainly don't. No matter what, you have to listen to me today. Greed filled Wang Xue's eyes as she stared at me. My body was no longer under my control. Even if I wanted to move, I couldn't. Damn it. In my current state, I was nothing but a tool to be used. I felt a surge of humiliation, looking at Xu Qing with resentment and hatred burning in my eyes. Annie Wang. A-Qiang is a good man. Xu Qing bit her lip, trying to persuade Annie Wang. Auntie Wang chuckled coldly. There are no good men. If he really didn't have any ulterior motives towards me, why would he keep my photos on his phone? They're all beasts in human clothing. We're just using each other. It seemed Wang Xue had seen my phone. Ultimately, I deserve this. I closed my eyes, remembering when I first met Xu Qing. Before we got married, she confessed a lot of things to me, such as the various men Wang Xue would bring home when she was a child. Growing up witnessing this, Xu Qing subconsciously saw men as objects. Before she met me, she had forgotten what pure love was. Hearing all that, I felt heartbroken for her and hoped that after marriage, Xu Qing would change. But there was no way. People rarely change. When I caught Xu Qing, she didn't cry and beg for forgiveness. Instead, she told me, let's get a divorce. Even if we didn't divorce, she would still find other men, which would be unfair to me. I was grateful to her. Annie Wang, let's go. As Wang Xue walked over, Xu Qing suddenly grabbed her and dragged her out. Don't do this anymore. I'll find other men. She left without looking back, shoving Wang Xue, grabbing clothes from the sofa and throwing them over Wang Xue's head. Then Xu Qing returned to the room and asked me, "Can you handle this yourself?" I nodded. Xu Qing's eyes were filled with tears. "I'm sorry." That was the last thing she said to me. Then I heard Wang Xue cursing outside, followed by a loud slam of the door. They disappeared from my home. I felt terribly ill and could only call my best friend. When he arrived, he found me nearly passed out. "Dude, what happened to you?" I glared at him and told him to take me to the hospital. Damn it, I didn't know what Wang Xue had used, but if I didn't get treated quickly, I might be crippled for the rest of my life. My friend, at least, still had some sense of brotherhood. He drove me to the hospital. When the doctor saw me, his expression became complicated. Young people sure know how to play, but you have to take care of yourselves. If you're crippled, the nurse will take you next door for a 4-drip, and we'll see how things are tomorrow. The doctor finished and had someone take me for various tests. My friend stifled his laughter beside me, his shoulders shaking. I was too angry to speak. Walking out of the office, I could almost hear the doctor whispering about me inside. Wang Xue and Xu Qing had completely humiliated me. After all the commotion, I fell asleep in the hospital ward in the middle of the night. My friend, now aware of what Wang Xue had done to me, patted my shoulder. Dude, you're quite the ladies' man. I envy you. You know, your Auntie Wang is still quite charming. I noticed her at your wedding. She's really alluring. This good fortune is yours if you want it, I said, rolling my eyes at him. My friend shook his head. I couldn't handle it. I'll see you tomorrow. He left, urged on by incessant phone calls. I knew, even with my eyes closed, that he was busy going on a date with a woman. Alone in the ward, I closed my eyes and thought of Xu Qing's expression as she left. She must have felt helpless. Living in that environment, raised with that kind of upbringing, even if she wanted to escape, she couldn't.